I'm going to be honest with you, the Beatitudes of Jesus sound more like alternative facts than beloved holy wisdom containing truth. The word beatitude comes from the Latin, meaning blessing or happiness. So in Matthew's Gospel, Jesus shares 8 supposed blessings where being poor and mourning, being hungry, and being persecuted all result in some form of happiness or blessing. And if any of this is true, it would certainly be ironic and countercultural, and Alanis Morissette should write a song about this text. When I was in college, I would wake up early on Tuesday mornings and go to the chapel for the devotion time. And the campus minister would be there, and I still remember the Tuesday morning when we read this exact text and were asked to journal about it. And I was offended by the text. At that time, I was not poor or sad or hungry or persecuted. I was quite happy, and I wondered if Jesus would not consider me to be blessed or worthy of blessing. Nadia Boltz-Weber rewrote the Beatitudes that Bill read for us. She wrote them in her own context for downtown Denver, Colorado. And I do love her words, but I still don't see how declaring lonely middle schoolers and night shift sweet sweepers as blessed makes it become true. I struggled with the message this week, probably mostly because I struggled with the week this week. We're 1 week into a power change at a national level, and I don't need to repeat back to you all the actual and in-motion changes that the powers that be have enacted. Most of them will ensure that even more people will qualify for Jesus' beatitude blessings. More people will be poor and hungry and in mourning and persecuted. So instead of trying to figure out the pearl of wisdom within this piece of scripture, I closed my laptop at Full Circle Bookstore where I was sermonating, and I pulled a book off the shelf, and I read the first chapter. It was a recent work of nonfiction by one of my favorite authors, Anne Lamott. In the first essay of her book, entitled Small Victories, Spotting Improbable Moments of Grace, she talked about a walk through the redwoods that she took with her good friend who was dying of ALS, of Lou Gehrig's disease. A few months earlier, she had taken a walk with this friend. They had gone throughout the woods and enjoyed conversation at a slow but manageable pace. But this time, a walker accompanied them into the woods. They walked at a pace of 1 mile per hour. Her friend could no longer speak on her own, so every piece of back and forth discussion involved stopping to type out responses into a computer-based iPad voice machine. Anne Lamott wrote about the beauty that her friend pointed out to her on the path as they walked. And she wrote about an ongoing list that her friend kept and updated every day. This list is where she kept track of all the things that she could still enjoy. Clipping her own nails with a very long nail clipper. Hearing songs in her own head. Enjoying a baseball game if the local teams she lived next to were winning loud enough for her to be able to hear the cheers. It reminded me of a common phrase and title of an old classic hymn, Count Your Blessings, count them one by one. Whenever things are not going as well as we would like them to, wise ones remind us to count our blessings, to not let the challenges cloud over all of the beautiful and impressive and inspiring blessings in our lives. After reading that chapter at Full Circle Bookstore, I still didn't feel competent enough to write wisdom about how Jesus pronounces blessing over those who are struggling. So I came back here to church and I checked the mail. We got a handwritten card from one of our members of the two churches who is incarcerated. Between our two churches, we correspond back and forth with about 4 beloveds who are behind bars. This letter came to us from a church member who is now open about the fact that he made very wrong decisions concerning money, which finally caught up with him. He's been in prison for 10 months now, and we've sent him church bulletins, and at their request, the Lenten book from last year, Gifts of the Dark Woods, which speaks very much to the context of being in prison. We've also placed a small amount of money on an account from a benevolence fund that he has been able to use to purchase socks and shorts and sweatpants. The full letter is up on a bulletin board in the community hall for all to read because it was addressed to the larger church. But inside the card was a separate piece of paper that was addressed to me. It said, "Please feel free to share my card with the churches in any way that you choose. Please accept my deepest gratitude for the gift. Thank you for sending bulletins. It helps me to feel connected to church. I am making a list of the amazing blessings that God has done in my life over the last 10 months. When I complete it, I will make sure to send you a copy." Why? Why and how do blessings rise up during times that we least expect them? Why would a man in prison say that God has blessed him, especially in the last 10 months? I decided to take another look at the Beatitudes and wonder what life would look like if we never lived through those experiences that Jesus described. Blessed are those who are mourning, they will be consoled. What if we never mourned? What if we held all that sadness inside of us and never let it come out? What if the grief consumed us bit by bit because we never permitted the blessing of journeying through grief to the other side to bless us? We'd never be in the position to allow other human beings to console us. I began to see that these were no alternative facts, but deep-rooted wisdom and blessings. What if we did not hunger and thirst for justice? What if we didn't march en masse at the Cathedral and experience the power of all that togetherness all over the entire country and world? What if we allowed ourselves to become numb to injustice and quieted the fire and thirst for a world that looked more like God's vision than it does like the world bought off by the highest bidder? What if we never showed mercy to others and our hearts became hardened and brittle? What if no one ever showed mercy to us and we were stuck with any kind of brokenness that we had caused and there was never opportunity for healing or repair? What if we did not work for peace, but instead we worked our whole lives long for war? One commentator I read this week said that part of what makes the Beatitudes so counterintuitive is that Jesus pronounces God's blessings on those who expose their vulnerability. Our typical approach to life is that success or wealth or power equals happiness. The problem with this is that the more that you succeed, the more wealth and power that you gain, the more that you then have to lose. And therefore, the more you relate to life in fear and competition. This way of life leads us to think that we can only be happy by winning or by beating someone else at the game. On Friday night, over 100 people showed up to make themselves vulnerable by watching the intense documentary 13th here in this sanctuary. This 13th documentary was about the amendment to our Constitution that was supposed to end slavery, but instead it included a clause which set into motion a long history of our country continuing racial prejudice by providing incentives for law enforcement and corporations to enslave human beings which led to our sin of mass incarceration, and proportionally for people of color. There were 2 newcomers who arrived 30 minutes early for the movie. Our food pantry was still going on in the basement, and one of the teenagers from the youth group brought these 2 newcomers down into the pantry and trained them in on how to walk other clients through the line. The 2 newcomers volunteered until the movie began, and after seeing the kind of causes that people in this building care about, they said, "We'll be back." Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for justice. They will have their fill. Just when it seems like the world is upside down, Jesus is there to reorient us. He's in our midst, proclaiming the possibility of happiness and blessing when it feels that such things are forever out of reach. When disease is taking over our body, blessing is still there. When we're serving time behind bars, when we're at our wits' end with the powers that be, when we can't fully decode the meaning behind the words on the page, blessing still comes moment by moment and step by step. May we count our blessings this evening and be open to how God is calling us to console others, to show mercy, and to be called children of God. May it be so.